Love in All the Wrong Places will likely contain explicit language and will definitely contain sexual content and sexual language. Enjoy. Hello, my name is Evan Bass, and thank you for joining us on Love in All the Wrong Places, where we journey into the romance erotica genres you didn't know existed, never would have imagined, and now must have in your life. Today, we are graced with special guests, Louis Febo and Stacy Price, with the amazing genre of Smurfs. Louis and Stacy, thank you for joining me.
Hello.
Hello.
For those who don't know the Smurfs are a creation of the Belgian comic artist Febo, also known as Pierre Collefort, and was created in 1958. They're originally called, and I'm going to try not to butcher this, Les Schtroumpfs in his native French, and they first appeared as side characters in the fantasy comic The Flute with Six Holes, which is a perfect name for a Smurf Erotica. And the interesting backstory on how it got to this weird word Smurf is, as the story goes, Pierre was having dinner with a colleague friend, André Francoin, and he couldn't remember the word for salt in French, which is sel, which is super easy. So that's on him. And so instead, he said, "Could you pass the Schtroumpf?" To which Francoin replied, "Here's the Schtroumpf. When you are done Schtroumpfing, Schtroumpf it back." And apparently the rest of that weekend that they were staying together, they just used Schtroumpf instead of nouns, adjectives, verbs, pretty much anything. Going forward, in Dutch, Schtroumpf is translated into Smurf, and in English, it was adopted. Yeah, so that is sort of how Smurfs came to be. Started out as a comic book, but then became cartoons, became movies, became serials. I feel like I saw it everywhere when I was a kid.
Well, yeah, it was like our childhood was surrounded by cartoons that were made into everything you saw in the world. Like Smurfs had their own cereal back in the day. And I don't know if you remember the controversy about that cereal, but they had to stop making it, and they were like, got into a lot of trouble because when kids went to the bathroom, the dye that they used in that cereal, stuff came out blue. So
No.
Why is that a bad thing?
but if you were a parent, you know, and your kid is going to the bathroom after eating the cereal. Yeah, so
You're turning into a Smurf.
right, you're turning into a Smurf. Yeah. I mean, I also remember being obsessed. One of my favorite things I ever got was my mom bought me this like clay set where you made Smurfs out of this like extremely toxic smelling clay that you then baked and then painted with even more toxic blue paint. And this is the stuff that we grew up on, and it was everywhere. Everything about cartoons became something everywhere else.
Yep.
Yeah. My association with Smurfs is it's in its own little box in my mind with Alf. Do you remember Alf?
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
The alien.
Yes.
I had a whole collection of Alf puppets.
Nice.
Every kind of Alf. And I wish I still had them because they're probably collectible items. And then I had troll dolls. And then I was into Care Bears. And then in that world is also Smurfs, which was like a very like mellow, happy cartoon, I guess, for me. That's my association with Smurfs, is a nice little gentle thing.
I have a question for you guys. Do you remember the Snorks?
What?
So the Snorks were essentially like Smurfs, but they had like a straw that came out of the top of their head and went backwards, and they lived underwater.
Right.
I swear I didn't make this up.
I'm speechless. I'm not sure.
I feel like this is one of those things one of my friends is going to be like, "You made that up. It's imaginary." And I'm like, "No, there's like storylines."
I hope this was a dream you had. I really do. Can you imagine? We discover that they do not exist, and this is just a childhood recurring dream you had. And
guys, so I have a TV series to pitch you guys.
Yeah.
So the Smurfs also had very unique characteristics that, let's say, didn't exist in a lot of other genres. With the Smurfs, they had both a like very unique attire and way of talking. So first they were blue, and they had white pantaloons, white pants, which ironically for the erotica, romance genre, were skin tight and clearly showed that they were like asexual and had no genitalia. And then they had a cap. And so these caps are referred to as Phrygian caps. And from what I have dug up, in ancient Rome, they came to signify freedom due to their resemblance with the pileus, which was a felt cap worn by emancipated slaves. Mm-hmm. And then the red Phrygian cap, because Papa Smurf I got to wear the red cap in the pants, I believe, was specifically a symbol of the French Revolution, though during the Reign of Terror, it was used to denote sort of following the violent regime, and therefore they were banned in France during the 19th century.
So basically a MAGA hat.
Yeah. Yes. Papa Smurf had a MAGA hat.
He wore a MAGA hat, yeah.
And there were only 99 Smurfs in the original comic and the cartoon, and they're all male. Every one of them is male. Now you may say, wait, there was Smurfette. But Smurfette was not originally a real Smurf.
That's right.
Wait,
Smurfette.
I have a question. Why do you think they were wearing hats that's of freed slaves? What's the significance of that?
That is a really good question. I do know that they are bald underneath because there is a 1959 Smurf story that is horribly inappropriately named, the Black Smurfs.
Yep.
What?
Originally named the Black Smurfs, but then changed in the US to the Purple Smurfs. And this is a cool fact. It is sometimes cited as one of the earliest examples of zombies in fiction because it was related to, I believe, the story had black flies that bit the Smurfs and they turned black and then were zombies. In that comic book series, they removed their hats for the first time, or they're Phrygians, and they're bald.
Well, there's also a lot of theories, going around that also, being that Papa Smurf wore the red hat and bottoms and everybody was in white, that it was a communist community. Yeah. That was another theory.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And that's why, the red was there to represent that isolated communist community.
And maybe they're not originally all male. Maybe they're just asexual. And only with the introduction of Smurfette did they get a biological sex or a gender associated with them. And that would go with the communism theme of equality.
Right.
There's Smurf babies eventually, right? No?
Well, yes and no. So there are Smurf babies. Those Smurf babies are not made between Smurfs. Smurfs are primarily, so this is just from a website I found, primarily a single gender race that are generally born male, though Smurfs do not physically reproduce. They do come into the world by a stork that delivers them to the Smurf village from an unknown location.
Okay. Right. Okay.
So they do have them, but literally go the route of a stork delivers them.
Okay.
And then you have 3 known female Smurfs. So there's Smurfette, Sassette, and Nanny Smurf. They're yes.
So 3 female archetypes.
And Smurfette was originally created by Gargamel,
right,
using magic. In the cartoon, it says she was created by the following recipe. Sugar, you ready for this? Sugar and spice, but nothing nice. A dram of crocodile tears, peck of bird brain, the tip of an adder's tongue, half a pack of lies, white, of course, the slyness of a cat, the vanity of a peacock, the chatter of a magpie, the guile of a vixen, and the disposition of a shrew, and of course, the hardest stone for her heart.
Guys, can I
That's
tell
my
you
favorite
a secret? Part. Can I tell you a secret?
Yeah?
That's how my parents made me.
I knew it. I knew it. But Smurfette was originally created by Gargamel to sow havoc in the Smurf village. But then I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, but maybe somebody correct me on this, Smurfette was then made into a real Smurf by Papa Smurf and his like magic.
Yeah, he did like an antidote spell. He like corrected the spell with his own spell and created Smurfette, which funny enough went from evil black hair to pretty blonde hair because that's the more innocent visual that we need to go from evil to good.
Also, interestingly, didn't think about it, but Smurfette would then be the only Smurf that has hair on her head, on its head.
Oh, okay.
All female Smurfs. So then there's Sassette, and Sassette was created by Papa Smurf, using the same formula that Gargamel used. That I don't know, maybe he just they swiped it, but then you know, integrating the antidote or whatever Papa Smurf special magic to make her not evil. And then there's Nanny Smurf, who was trapped in a castle for a very long time and comes out, and she knows Papa Smurf, but you don't find anything about her history. So she could have been a magical creation. We don't know. She just like appears.
Right.
Is anybody married on the show, or like, no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No one's married, but Papa Smurf is definitely the father figure. And like they, you know, there's lots of stuff written about how there are some that say that he is the father of all the Smurfs. Others say he's just the father figure. But then, you know, I guess he wouldn't be technically the father if they were all delivered there by a stork. But I mean, that's a whole other conversation.
And they live for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Right.
Papa Smurf may be like 1,000 years old. There's one part of a story where he goes off on a 500-year journey.
Right.
You know, Smurfs are really small, so that probably didn't go that far.
The journey to the front of the porch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
Yeah.
It's a Smurf. I made it to the sprinkler.
But isn't it cool, though, because, you know, with what you were talking about as far as like the different Smurfettes and the creation and whatnot, just also there's a Smurf represented in every type. You know what I mean? So like, you know, you've got Hefty Smurf, the tattooed Smurf that's like big and tough and the strongest, and you know, then you've got Brainy, and then there was that Vanity Smurf that raises a lot of questions that as kids you thought, yeah, he's kind of different, and then you know, there's something there. Why does his voice sound like Paul Lynde, the center square? Like it's like so there's a lot of they represented a lot of types.
Archetypes.
Yeah.
I mean, like the dwarves, right? I mean, Sneezy,
of course,
Sleepy. That I think, you know, in my mind, it was that made it easy for kids to be like, I know this one.
Yes,
I want to. Like, I could buy that. Which one do you want to buy? Well, you just have to name the.
Or which one do you want to be? Because I remember playing I remember in elementary school, people, when it was recess, the kids would actually, okay, you're Papa Smurf today, and I'm this, and I'm that, and I'm Hefty, and then you'd like, you know, play and like act out like scenes and stuff, you know.
Go on.
Yeah,
How did this game
work? No, just as kids, don't you remember like kind of like role playing and like your, you know, some of your favorite shows and like characters and stuff? So like I just remember that. I specifically remember people, oh well, you're this one and you're this one today, and then you just like play, you know?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Donatello, Raphael, Leonardo. those are the ones I remember playing.
Yeah.
I think that's how parkour got invented, actually. Also, interesting fact I found about Gargamel. So Gargamel is the bad person, and you have sort of these archetypes. Gargamel is the human. Of course, the Smurfs are, you know, cute and blue and soft and smooth. And then Gargamel has, I would say, another archetype, possibly not the most respectful in, you know, physical attributes that could be associated with certain ethnicities, then had a giant mole on his head. And sort of what you were saying, Lewis, there's certain things that could be construed as like, I don't know, not politically correct is not the right word, just offensive.
Yeah. And the Smurfs cartoon that we grew up with, that was created on the cusp of like All in the Family and Archie Bunker, and were stereotypes like, we're still, even used in cartoons, and it was like okay back then. You know what I mean? But there, yeah, you're right. Like the fact that Gargamel sort of, I guess, stereotypically looks a certain, has certain features. Yeah, that's something that like can be explored, but it certainly wouldn't exist today.
And interestingly, Gargamel is a female name. So Gargamel comes from the work of Francois Rabelais, who's a 16th century French writer, and wrote this satire called The Life of Gargantua and of Pantagruel. And it's a collection of short stories that detail the chivalry and the exploits of a giant and his son. Gargamel, spelled with a double L and an E, was Gargantua's mother. So they gave this male villain a female name, which also sort of, I don't know if the goal was to create something with that or just the name is kind of cool. But I thought that was an interesting sort of twist, definitely physical, ethnic archetypes.
Did we just uncover something? Was Gargamel this whole time a woman?
No, Gargamel is definitely a man. I don't know.
Wait, what does Gargamel mean?
It's just a name. It's a name that was created by this French author.
Oh, okay. This is like about to ruin my childhood. Okay. Well, not really, but...
And then you also have Azrael, his Gargamel's cat, and Azrael is the Archangel of Death.
Okay.
So you've got like a very weighted villains going on for sure.
Can I say these people that have played Gargamel? Hank Azaria, Rainn Wilson.
Amazing comedic actors.
Also, Gargamel, if we're talking about like, with the two L's and an E is very specific and very feminine, kind of name. I'm looking at Gargamel, and because you just said it, like what he's wearing, is it like a one piece, like sort of dress? Is that a whole black dress?
I think it's a robe. It's a robe.
Okay.
I was assumed because Gargamel does magic, my little kid me assumed he had a really just worn. I mean, he's got a horrible, like a not pleasant life. Like he's never happy. He doesn't get anything. I don't know why he's going after the Smurfs. I can't even remember like his motivation. He's just evil.
You know what it is? It's very How the Grinch Stole Christmas. He's isolated. He's in a castle looking to destroy the Smurfs in the Smurfs village. And he's got Azrael as his little side friend or character in the house. And the Grinch, it's the same thing. He hated Whoville, and he had his little dog that was with him that helped him out, so it's sort of like the same kind of idea, no?
So I have a possibility for why Gargamel was going after the Smurfs.
Okay. Smurf
is also known as a colloquial term for a specific way of money laundering. So I will explain. To Smurf is when you seek to evade scrutiny from government agencies by breaking up large transactions into a set of smaller transactions that are each below the reporting threshold, also known as smurfing. So, for example, most big banks have to report wire transfers of more than $10,000. So if you have $150,000 and you break it up into 16 different transfers under $10,000, you have just smurfed the system.
Okay. What happened first? Did the guy decide, start saying Smurfs with the salt? Did that happen before the vocab word of smurfing?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
So they developed the verb smurf.
Yes.
Happened after the guys in Belgium had fun with salt.
Probably like decades later, like this is probably somebody in some agency being like, oh man, Smurf. Well, and this sort of goes to the language of Smurf, where in the show, they just replace every word with Smurf.
Right.
It's got this insane language derivation where it can mean a noun, an adjective. Actually, in the animated version of the Smurfs and the Magic Flute, which relates to the original, the flute with the 6 holes, the humanish character is named Peewit. And so Peewit tries to talk to Brainy Smurf using Smurf to try and get some food or water. And it of course fails because he's like, I want a Smurf. Would you get me a Smurf? And he like brings back an axe, and he's like, no, like I want a Smurf. And then like brings back something else. So Brainy tries to explain, and Brainy says, well, to speak Smurf, the verb and noun must both agree, and adjectives make the meaning vary. And also apparently intonation, and only Smurfs understand other Smurfs. But it's like Smurf on Smurfing Smurf. Oh man, I Smurfed it. Isn't that Smurfy?
Yeah.
Smurftastic. Smurfy idea. Great Smurfs of fire. So maybe there's this government agency person who is like, man, I love the Smurfs. I'm going to create an actual real word terminology. It is insane what has come out of Smurfs. Do you guys know the Smurfs theme song?
Oh, come on.
Created by Pierre Cartner.
Okay.
Topped the music charts in 16 countries.
Yes.
What's the theme song?
Well, it's the fa la 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 la, sing a happy song.
Oh, man.
Well, no, in the first season, when they do the introduction of what the Smurfs is, like, they have the elongated introduction where there's a narrator that comes before the song, and then the song kicks in. It wasn't until, like, the following seasons that they left that out, and it was just the la 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 la, la that we all know.
In college, I used to listen to techno music to work out to, and I straight up had a Smurf theme song techno remix.
Oh, no.
Is there a way you can play that? Can you play it?
I definitely can play it. I'm going to play it right now.
This is probably the most challenging record you have ever put on your turntable.
I can hear it. Evan's doing some really good dance moves right now. So just to give everyone a...
All right.
Evan, is this from your, like, advanced Zumba class?
No, I ran track in college, and so when I had to do hard workouts on my own, I would pump up the techno. I've got a large array of either soundtracks or theme songs, techno remixed. So I'm going to pivot us into the story we read. The story we read is a fan fiction, Smurfs. This is not the only story that exists. If you want to search for Smurf romance, Smurf erotica, there's a lot out there. I found one, Handy's New Sweetheart. There's Admit the Love Between Smurfs. There's a plethora of stories. I believe Handy's New Sweetheart is something like the equivalent of a 300-page book. That one was very interesting, at least to me, because it was clear that the person who liked the Smurfs liked them for their innocence. And so the romance was very much in line with, they held hands.
Oh.
And then they kissed. And it was very sweet. And then there was like a couple of moments of hardcore erotica, and then it disappeared. But it was almost like the person didn't want to write that. It was really a love story between Handy and Yasmin, who I don't believe was an actual Smurf. It was a created Smurf.
And Handy? Handy was the... Okay,
Andy,
he was the mechanic.
Andy was very
Smurfs.
handsy in this one.
Yeah.
So the one that we read, which can be found at literotica.com, is called Smurf Me Hard. And
I wonder what that means.
It was a doozy. It was interesting. It was... would either of you like to give a crack at the simple summary, or you want me to do it?
Go ahead.
You do it, yeah.
Okay, so the simple summary is that Gargamel performs two pieces of magic. First, creates an elixir or potion or something that Azrael has to drink, and then Azrael goes around Smurf Village and I guess pees it everywhere, and the scent of it makes Smurfs need to copulate, makes them extremely horny. And then, and I'm not going to do the spoiler.
Evan,
I'm not going to give a spoiler. Wait, did you say, Lewis is laughing at me because I wiped my forehead.
So what I'm going to say is this is a podcast and it's only vocal for those listening, but we can see Evan, and as he's describing this, he just wiped his forehead. Are you sweating, my guy? What's going on?
Okay, in all honesty, before these erotica romance stories, it's not the genre that I normally fall into. So one of the reasons that I find this really interesting and I want to do this podcast is because I think it is taboo to talk about sex, and I am not the most comfortable at it. So I thought it'd be kind of funny for me to try and talk about this. Thus my specific word choice. That
man, yeah, copulate. Right. Come on.
So yes, so it makes the Smurfs horny. And then Gargamel also creates a red-headed Smurf, and that Smurf kind of goes in, and the entire village starts just having sex with Smurfette and the red-headed Smurf, and it all leads to sort of a ploy to try and steal Papa Smurf's magic, and turns into a Smurf bang. Turns into a general Smurf bang.
A Smurf bang, yes.
I love it. It's like Smurfs meets 9.5 weeks. Smurfs meets Mickey Rourke. Smurf meets what is it? Smurf meets
Smurf
50
meets
Shades of Grey.
Eyes Wide Shut. Oh yeah, 50 Shades of Grey would work too. So there's like this just tons of sex happening, and then Granny Smurf gets in to try and help prevent Papa Smurf from possibly getting tricked. She sacrifices herself. Okay. So that is, would you agree? Anything else you guys want to add to the story that I may have left out?
Well, I mean, you left out some really specific details with Granny Smurf, but I guess people should go online and read it. Yeah, she saves the day so that Gargamel doesn't get Papa Smurf's magic juices. But the one thing you left out is also that regular, normal Smurfette is there to sort of help ease what's going on too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Stacy,
did
you want to add?
You know what? I think you guys got it. I think you nailed that one.
The thing that was interesting to me was that this genre exists, right? It's a genre. The Smurfs are almost asexual. They're either all males, and then the females were created just to tempt them, but not for sex reasons in the comic or the cartoon. Mm-hmm. And they're delivered by storks. They don't even procreate. So the idea of sexualizing Smurfs was, I don't know if interesting is the right word. It's just like, it's thought-provoking.
Yeah.
I mean, they're wearing, as I said in the initial description of their clothes, they are the inventors of skinny jeans. And it's completely spherical, both front and back. They never talk about going to the bathroom either. So this idea that they're like somehow sumo wrestler hiding their own genitalia inside of themselves to protect themselves or whatever, and then take it out to have sex, not to procreate, is such a weird thing.
Well, I mean, the whole... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Stacy.
No. I was just going to throw in a non sequitur. Like, just be like, I am so curious about this writer. Man, oh man. Who's writing this stuff?
Well, the funny thing about that is that his, I guess, screen name, if you look at it, the first half of it says Iowa.
Oh, he's in Iowa?
So that says a lot, too.
I assumed it was Lowalk, but
I thought it was Iowa, which made sense to me because listen, I mean, if you got to be in Iowa to be coming up with this type of stuff. So, okay.
It also could be Iowa-like. So IOWALK. And he's written 46 stories. So
yes, he has.
Or she. I mean, I'm assuming because of the way this is written, and it's not, female on female or necessarily female empowering, given that the female Smurfs are more sex objects in this. It is not the most respectful towards women. in that sense. So I
mean,
assume
we're in the
is,
clear. We're probably in the clear, but this could be a 13-year-old boy writing all these things. I just want to say, we don't know. We're going to assume he's of age, or she.
Yes. Yep.
But it's
Yeah,
all.
I mean,
It's really amazing that you brought that up, Stacy, because when I was reading it, some of the spelling mistakes made me think that this could be somebody underage as well.
Yeah.
On the positive, being creative and
of course,
and writing short stories
and releasing into the world some pent up stuff that they want to release. You know,
and I do like the fact that this had a story, so it wasn't a rape scenario that is just offensive. That in this it was trickery in line with something that would happen in a Smurf show. Gargamel's always trying to trick the Smurfs to catch them, to gain them or whatever. That it did remove some of the stuff that I find somewhat offensive in erotica, where it seems like they are using a genre to have an offensive fantasy.
But here's the thing, though. This person, whoever they are, is smart in the sense that he or she wrote this, because I'm very familiar. I revisited the very first episode, season 1, episode 1, and it's very much a little bit aligned with that. Gargamel created that sort of the Smurfette that he created with the black hair to cause havoc with the Smurfs and whatnot, and it had to be corrected, and they did everything she went there she kind of did sort of like entice and whatnot, and in that little episode, it's for children, but we all know, watching Warner Brothers and Bugs Bunny, how there were so many hidden adult jokes for the parents. And in that very episode, when Papa Smurf corrected the spell and made her into the Smurfette that we know with the blonde hair, when she's revealed and presented to the rest of the village, there's like a whole line of Smurfs outside waiting to give her gifts, and they're smitten with her and have little crushes on her and want to win her heart. And in this erotic story of his, he not only kind of like borrows from that, but this person's very smart because he covers a little bit of everything. There is a little bit of a rapey sort of aspect to the gangbang that happens in their story, but he also throws in how the police Smurf, like, all of a sudden puts his hand on Grouchy, and Grouchy's like, no, that's cool and all if you're gay, but I'm not into that type of thing. And so he touches on like the gay side, and he touches on the rapey side, and he covers a lot of like sexual sort of scenarios in this.
Can I say I would like to write fan fiction about this, and it would be like the day after the blue orgy, and it will just be about how everybody emotionally deals with
the awkward breakfast table the next day.
The awkward breakfast table. The cleanup, all that sort of thing.
I think also because there is the original all male, that it has had people wonder, oh, that's like, how does this exist, right? How did they procreate? Oh, it's storks. So that's weird. Like, why are they all male? If they were genderless, that would make sense. But if they're all male, what does this mean? And in, I think, one of the later movies, so not Smurf canon as it were, there's an all-female village, and they don't note on sort of if that was a magical creation or if they are original Smurfs. But I think that sort of out of this curiosity comes creating answers. I
literally wandered into, like, is there an animal that gets delivered a baby? And of course not, but it was just like the closest thing we have is birds hatching their own eggs. But I was just like, just the idea of that is so distant from how we, get offspring, It's just so, I don't know.
Wasn't that the tool used back in the day to prevent the talk of sex talk with children? So, you wouldn't, the stork always, when babies appeared in a storyline, whether it was cartoon
Dumbo.
or not, it was always a stork, because you just, you didn't want to tell children how babies really, were made. So,
which is an avoidance of the truth.
Where did that idea come from? You know what I mean? Like, why?
Who came up with stork?
Who came up with stork? And just like, it's just so. I mean, I think it's just interesting where our minds went to, like, you know what I mean? To distance ourselves from normal animal thing to happen, which is having babies and all stuff like that.
I mean, it happens everywhere. I mean, you have fish as pets. You have, you know, gerbils or hamsters. Like they have babies. It is very weird that we as a society are not comfortable discussing things that, like, how we were born and how our offspring will be born. It's not like it can be avoided.
Things to think about, no?
It's all the communists, right? Is that How did they get these different derivations? So we've got the stork pulling from the myth or the things that parents tell their children to avoid. I mean, I've heard, you know, birds and the bees. Admittedly, I don't even know what that story is, like what birds and bees have to do with anything. It's amazing the things that are subtle. Like, as you said, Lewis, there's in a lot of cartoons, there are adult content for the adults.
Right.
But some of these adult content also is sort of not appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys know the backstory of, like, Little Mermaid, where they had a lot of illustrations of genitalia in the background?
Oh my God, you are on my wavelength. I was just about to say the same thing. For sure. Oh, wait, you don't know this?
No.
So I'm sorry. I'll let Stacy finish, and then I'll.
No, I don't know. I don't want to directly reference it because it's such a loose memory in my mind. But I just remember, I remember it being a very saucy cartoon. If you look out for it.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, I just want to say. So what you're saying is, my childhood daydreaming made up thing is snorks, and yours is genitalia on Ariel. Got it.
Yeah, but the difference is Stacy's is actually facts. It's true. I actually still have the VHS tape and case from when.
You do?
Yes, I have the original one, where one of the towers in the castle is a penis. They cleaned it up afterwards, but the original tape that my mom bought us, my sister and I still have it. And when I get back to New York, I'll take a picture of it and send it to you. But yeah, it's got the penis on it. But most of the Disney cartoons are notorious for slipping in sexual stuff. You really didn't know this, Evan?
Well, I knew in Lion King, when Pumbaa falls into, like, flowers or something, there's like a single frame that spells
out sex.
Yeah.
And it's true. If you pause it in the perfect place, it says the word sex. Yeah. There's a lot. But here, so it's funny that Stacy brought this up, because while watching the first episode, I came across, and again, people listening to this aren't going to see this, but I don't know if you are able to see this image I captured.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Oh, my goodness.
Underneath the mushroom.
Underneath the mushroom. Let me see if I can sort of see. Do you see it, though?
Yeah.
So there's clearly a penis with testicles under that mushroom. And that's in the very first episode of the Smurfs.
That is crazy.
Yeah. And there's a lot of that. If you look, there's a lot of that in the cartoons that we watched growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say mushrooms in general are somewhat of a phallic symbol in and of themselves. It's hard not to have that imagery. I'm partially speechless because I'm thinking how many probably sexual imagery, be it phallic imagery or Georgia O'Keeffe imagery, that is probably all throughout the Smurfs.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, the mushrooms it's themselves.
I also keep coming back to, so there are 99 male Smurfs. There's originally just Smurfette is introduced. Gargamel's male. He lives alone, and he's got Azrael, a cat that's female. So you've got 100 male characters and 2 female characters, which is probably appropriate for the time in which this was created in representation on film or in the performer industry, where women were hugely underrepresented. But it's amazing that was created. I guess, like, that much of a completely male-dominated show.
Yeah.
And especially when the first female introduced of Smurfs is evil. Literally, the only female is evil. But there were also so many very random and creative cartoons at that time.
Yeah.
Interesting what
Like the
strikes a
Snorks.
nerves with like kids, you know, like Teletubbies, like, you know, like it's just something feels right.
So I know we veered, but like, so what was it about what you were saying before about the actual erotica story that we all read that you wanted to like continue on? Like,
Why this genre or what it came up? I mean, there's definitely sexualizing things, and there's like a, I won't spoiler it, but there's a twist at the end that is, I feel like in many erotica stories I've read, it goes, for me, it goes over the top. Maybe it's not over the top, but it went a little too far. But I think for certain people who read erotica, that is what they're looking for. And so therefore, I'm just a prude. Any thoughts that this story evoked because it is set in the Smurf world for you guys?
I think anything that's sort of forbidden to go to, you know what I mean? It has like a sexually exciting element to it. So it's like these are asexual creatures and we don't get to think about them that way. So then us getting to think about them that way is like a sexy possibility. So that's why it probably is so fun for people to explore and stuff.
it's kind of that also like testing a forbidden area, you know what I mean? Because you're taking something that's so beloved, like, you know, there's so many of us that grew up on the Smurfs, and it's like, oh, somebody sexualized this. Whereas if you look at something that's been normalized, like anime, you know what I mean? Like that sort of stuff is very acceptable sexual stuff for cartoons. But when you take something like the Smurfs, it's like, oh my god, it's shocking. Yeah, it's forbidden. Yeah, it's like it's forbidden. Yeah, it's forbidden.
Also, their voices are sort of, well, I guess I could say that of any sort of animated cartoon thing, but it's not a sultry, deep voice going on with these characters. They're higher. You know what I mean? So it's
they're very childlike.
And even hearing them engage in this sort of activities and talking about it feels different, or you know, and I guess that's why there's so much fan fiction, and
Well, I think it's also interesting on something you said about we hear their voices, that I think because it's on a genre that many of us know well, or maybe if you're listening to this, you might not know well at all, but if you've seen, you know, an episode of the Smurfs, you have their voices in your head. So then when you're reading this fan fiction, you're hearing those really weird, innocent voices say these things that are like they'd never actually say.
Yeah, and their world that is so bubbly and so light. It's just it breaks a lot of boundaries with our own boundaries, I guess, with what we expect to happen.
I was very Smurf founded when I was reading it.
Yeah.
I'll sign us off, and then you can, you know, say whatever ending thought you have. Thank you for listening to Love in All the Wrong Places. That's among those wrong places are all of the flute's 6 holes. Please feel free to subscribe to the podcast where any and all places podcasts can be found. And if you have any suggestions for future genres, please feel free to follow us on Instagram at LIATWP. Our special guests, Stacy Price and Louis Febo. Thank you so much for joining us on this Smurf coaster of a Smurfcast.
This was Smurftastic. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, this is Smurfalicious. Thank you for having me. Awesomeness.